they really did not need to go this hard. And probably when devs were asked the question of how beautiful you want to make this game, the answer was yes, nothing else, just yes. Because this is probably one of the most beautiful games, if not the most beautiful game that I've ever seen. And it is far more beautiful than it should be. And of course, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Empire of the Ants. And without further ado, I'm just gonna give you the answer whether this game is absolutely worth buying or not, to give you time to think about it or just get anything else that you want. And the short answer is, well, it's kind of complicated. This game is kind of struggles in its identity, in decision of what type of game it is, whether it's a narrative-driven story game or an RTS. And it really does not succeed in any of those. It's kind of average in both of those things. And even though RTS elements is kind of deep in this game, it suffers from issues that makes it really not playable for a long time. And only two things that is absolutely undeniable in this game is how beautiful it looks and how beautiful it sounds. Because trust me, there is nothing like this on the market, and probably it never was and won't be for a really long time. And no videos will ever show how actually beautiful this game is. But now let's get into the details to give you full understanding what Empire of the Ants actually is. Well, Empire of the Ants is a very difficult game to explain genre-wise. You are playing as an ant and you don't have a name, you actually have a number, and every single ant in this game, except for the queens and mothers of hives, actually have only number, not name. And your number is 103,000 something something. And you are basically strategist. You're basically general of the army or a scout or anything else that Queen commands you to do. But mainly you are general of the army. And in the story mode of the game, you are given the task to do different things, like scouting the area, collecting the resources, checking out what's happening on other colonies, and commanding armies. You yourself cannot fight, since you are not a warrior ant, and the only things that you can do is you can, well, first command an army, command smaller nests to build things, and you can also sprint and jump. That's literally all the things that you can do. And the game is divided into different missions. You have a hub areas, and based on different chapters of the game, you will have a different hub areas, and you are taking missions in there. And those missions can be a different variety, from hunting fireflies to destroying a termite armies. And enemy-wise, usually your enemies are other insects. And Game actually has a story which I will not be spoiling at this moment. And there are a lot of things that, and there are a lot of variety in those missions, at least in a first glance. Like for example, one mission is kind of pure platformer. Your goal is to move from one place to another without getting into water, because water actually kills you within a few seconds. Another mission puts you in a cave, and your goal is to hunt fireflies, and only two ways to take fireflies is actually to running up to them really quickly, or just jumping on them, or catching them in mid-flight, which is much more difficult than you think. But most missions are combat or RTS based, and depending on the missions, you will have a different abilities unlocked, and this is kind of like an extended tutorial for skirmishes or multiplayer battles. And yes, this game has a multiplayer as well. Each time you get into a combat, you have a certain number of nests. You can start with one or multiple number of nests, and each nest has the ability to build different buildings. And you have two resources, which is food and wood, and each nest can also harbor a legion, which can be one of the three types of warriors, like for example workers, gunners, and warriors, and they act as rock, paper, scissors against other enemies. Like for example, gunners are good against warriors, warriors are good against workers, and workers are good against gunners. And you also can have a special type of units like bugs, which are basically your tanks that can destroy anything and everything in your path, or some type of smaller insects that act as support units. You also have an ability to get powers, basically buffing your units or debuffing your enemies, like instilling fear, or healing your units, or increase their armor, or increasing their damage, and things like that. And because you are controlling the ant that is actually doing all of those things, you're not looking at everything at the bird's eye view. You're actually running around the place to give different commands that collect different resources, or rather give commands to collect resources and things like that. And at first it looks quite fun. Ants have quite beautiful fighting animation, and because the game looks quite great, it's actually quite entertaining to watch. And with absolute stunning beauty of the game, at first you might think that this is the best game ever, but then the cracks will start showing up. Well, first things first, let's start with the movement system. It's not really intuitive, let's say. Like for example, your ant can actually run more quickly, but if you run, you're losing the ability to stick to the surfaces correctly. Basically, if you're running and there is some kind of small ramp, you will just go flying away. And yeah, that's more or less understandable. Jumping can also be tricky because you don't have really indicators where you will land, so you need to aim with your eye. But it's actually not big of a problem because you will learn how to control your ant. The issue is with sticking on different surfaces, because your ant can basically move on anything and everything, and as soon as you will go upside down, your controls kind of invert as well, and it's kind of becoming very difficult to control where you are going. And there are a lot of spaces cases where you will be upside down. So it's actually a bit of a tricky thing. And probably this upside down movement is the biggest issue with me. But that's not all. The issues are also with an RTS gameplay. Because with RTS gameplay, there are often a lot of times where you don't need to do absolutely anything, or you cannot do absolutely anything. Well, first things first with gathering resources. Well, there are a few ways to gather resources. First, you can establish farms in your nests, and you can only install one type of farm in each nest, like one for food or one for wood, or you can get these resources by defeating other creatures, like for example firebugs or ladybugs. And they're not really always on a map, so your resource uptake is very slow. And yeah, okay, it's understandable that you need time for this. But the game also stops when you get into combat, because if you put all of your legions into combat, you cannot really disengage them. They will fight until they will win, or all of them will die. So for example, if you have 5 legions attacking one enemy legion, you cannot do anything with any of them. They will fight until they will win or they will die. And when they will die, they will disappear, and you will have a timer until they can reappear again. The issue is also with upgrades, because if you want to upgrade your units, when you will press upgrade, they will disappear from the spot they are in and reappear in their own respective nests, which is kind of strange as well. And all these pauses of watching while you can generate enough resources to do anything, or while units are in a combat, makes it kind of boring to watch, and animations will become stale quite quickly, and you cannot really keep up high actions per minute with this game, which sucks a little bit if you ask me. But is that it? Well, actually not. The issue is with story mode itself. Like for example, oftentimes you're gonna have like 4, 5, 6 missions all at the same time, and you need to complete them one by one, and they're same type of combats or same type of movements or same type of platformers, which is not really moving story forward, and it's just there to bloat it. And I really did not like it. Like for example, the first time this happens is when you get to the second location of the map, again no spoilers, and when you complete a few missions, suddenly you realize that you have 6 or 7 exclamation marks, which are basically the main story missions. I really didn't like it, and no type of absolute beauty can keep this game really long. So mid-game actually drags quite a lot. It becomes a little bit better a bit later, but still it drags quite a lot. But anything and everything can be forgiven if the price is right. So how much game will actually cost you? Well, at full price, this is actually a $40 game. You can also pay $50 for digital deluxe edition, which contains art book, OST, and wallpapers, and it also included 3-day advanced access, which at the moment of the recording is still available, but when I will upload it, it may not be, because I'm recording this on 5th of November, but the game will launch at 7th. So if you're watching this anytime later, yeah, you're not gonna get anything else except for an art book, OST, and wallpaper. So is this game worth it for this price? Well, if you ask me, and if I will give this points, this game is solid 7 out of 10. Absolute beauty of the game just pushes the game very high. But the gameplay issues is quite glaring, and I think they can be fixed. So would I recommend this for the $40? I would say yes, if you want to support the dev that created the beauty like that. But if you want my honest opinion, like gameplay wise, as a gamer, if I was buying this game as a gamer, not as a game supporter, then I would say wait for a sale, or wait until some fixes will come out for this game. For $20, this game is must buy. For $40, if you can afford it, then it is a must buy. For $40, if you can afford it and you want to support the devs like that who released this beauty, then yeah, I would say yes. Other than that, you can watch other reviews about this game and decide for yourself. And if you like this game, you probably like RTS games, so you can watch my list of best RTS games right here. Or if you like anything around ANTS, you probably like factory animation. I don't know how it's related, but you can watch my list of best factory animation games right here as well. This is me for tape, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Take care.